Arcanum 2, the Virgin. Arcanum 2 pictures a woman seated on a cube between two pillars. She wears a triple crown surmounted by a receptive moon over which shine 7 stars. She also wears a veil suspended from her crown. The glyph of the planet Mercury adorns her solar plexus. On her lap she holds a book, partially covered by a mantle falling from her right shoulder. Symbolism and philosophy. After the blind fool awakens and comes to his senses, he is called the prodigal son who says, "I will rise and go to my father." His self-will is in process of dying, and he thereafter uses his mind to seek union with the light of heaven with which to find his homeward way. This brings him to the mystic pillars of Jachin and Boaz, between which rests the cube of matter, quickened by the Virgin guarding the entrance to the temple of truth. He now faces the next step on the path that ultimately returns him to his father's house. Here he experiences the first of the 3 stages comprising the miracle of his own virgin birth, that of conception. When the Spirit of God impregnates the prodigal's divine soul, he mystically travails and gives birth to the Christ child of God consciousness in the manger of his own heart. That child then grows into manhood and eventually flowers into godhood. In the zodiac, the Virgin graces the sign Virgo, mother of the gods, giver of life and goddess of the harvest. Mythology calls her by many names: Isis, Diana, Ishtar, Rhea, Ceres. By whatever name, she personifies all nature, not only that outside of man, but his own inward being as well. Outwardly, she is Mother Nature. Inwardly, she is the divine soul, or Mother of God. That factor of man's 7-fold being, which gives birth to his spiritual awareness. The Virgin has a double symbolism. Grecian mythology probably gives us the best representation in the character of Rhea. Daughter of Uranus and Gaia, sky and earth, she is wedded to Kronos, Father Time. As daughter of the sky, she portrays man's divine soul. As daughter of the earth, she represents the animal soul. At the entrance of many temples of the ancient world stood 2 unjoined columns. The most notable, named Jachin and Boaz, were the pillars in front of King Solomon's temple. They, like Arcanum 2, tells us of the principle of duality in this world of opposites: good and evil, light and dark, long and short, wide and narrow, positive and negative, male and female, etc. The right-hand column in Arcanum 2 is said by some authorities to be red, and the left black. Dr. Decor contended there is evidence from Egyptian monuments and texts to indicate that 2 columns were originally tinted red and green, the meaning of the Hebrew words for Adam and Eve. These 2 columns tell us that we must learn to distinguish the unity or reality behind apparent duality. The forces they represent must be rejoined within ourselves. Jachin signifies the spirit, will, wisdom. Boaz, the divine soul, intuition, love. In the prodigal's former state of at-one-ment with the source of his origin, he enjoyed full use of these faculties within himself as one complete being, a son of God. Removing himself from God broke his original unity into positive and negative, or male and female aspects. The final result of redemption is their reunion within each prodigal, man or woman. The great work of overcoming along the royal road ultimately brings about the happy event. Gradually, it balances the prodigal's off-centered reasoning by exercising his dormant intuition. This, in time, makes complete his reunion with the light of heaven, 7 stars above the Virgin, which harmonizes the 3 great factors of his being: spirit, soul, and body, the triple crown. The veil hanging from the Virgin's crown obscures her face. This tells us that the great work must proceed by degrees, because the reasoning mind, Mercury, blurs the clear vision of the intuitive soul, Moon. We see through a glass darkly. The mantle dropping over the Virgin's right shoulder half covers the book of life she holds on her lap, whose pages she awkwardly tries to turn with her left hand. The dictionary defines the word mantle as anything that clothes or envelopes, hence, figuratively, whatever covers or conceals, as a mantle of darkness. Mother Nature clothes man's spirit with a mantle or garment of flesh. That garment does indeed conceal the light of the spirit within, but as the garment has no power within itself apart from the life that animates it, we must look deeper than the fleshy robe we wear in order to find the real obscuring element. That element is the mind, symbolized by the glyph for the planet Mercury the Virgin wears on her bosom. The mind that focuses its attention only on selfish values perceives but the outer husk of truth, as it swings back and forth like a pendulum between the pairs of opposites. Man thinks he enriches his mind by stuffing it with millions of facts, but the inner reality of truth eludes his grasp until he permits the Spirit of God to draw aside his carnal, mercurial mantle. The book in the Virgin's lap supplements the symbolism of the mantle. It too speaks of the mind. It is the book of what psychology calls the conscious and subconscious mind, the book of pleasure and pain, or what we call good and evil. In this ledger of life, we enter our every experience on one side or the other. But no matter how diligently we search that record, we fail to solve the mystery of our being. For in it, the finger of time inscribes only the account of our fleeting sojourn on earth. The memory of our history before our advent in this world lies buried deep within our spirit. The glyph upon the Virgin's bosom symbolizes the planet Mercury, messenger of the gods, and ruler of the mind. The Spirit uses this tool alternatively to think about and act upon both heavenly and earthly things, normally much more of the latter than the former. Mercury's symbol portrays the crescent moon of soul surmounting the circle of spirit over the cross of body. Its location on the Virgin's solar plexus, or abdominal brain, indicates the channel by which intuition from the soul filters through into our mental awareness from the subconscious to the conscious mind. The mind seeks to know truth. The soul feels its presence. The mind wants to be convinced by evidence. The soul seeks to realize power. The mind reads doctrine. The soul sings praise. Each in its own way goes Godward, aided by this wing-footed messenger. Astrology. Arcanum 2 corresponds to the sign Virgo, the ninth house of the planet Mercury, and rules sickness, service, and labor. It signifies the harvest and all harvest products. Human anatomy. Arcanum 2 indicates the bowel, specifically the small intestine, governing assimilation and digestion. It also indicates the portal vein, the spleen, the womb, all organs of reception, and the process of qualification. Masonic ritual. Arcanum 2 corresponds to the fellow craft degree. It refers especially to the pillars of Joachim and Boaz, through which the candidate must approach the source of light. When reason and intuition reunite in the temple of redemption, he comes into his inheritance as a son of God, prepared to do his will in the great work of overcoming his own self-will. Arcanum 2 teaches the true initiation depends on prayer for light and a sincere willingness to walk therein to the extent that it is revealed. If the candidate permits that light to animate his divine soul, the Holy Spirit will lead him from height to height along the royal road. Ultimately, that road leads him back to the sanctum sanctuarium. The Bible. The Bible first brings Arcanum 2 into view by mentioning the seed of the woman in Genesis chapter 3, verse 15. This is the seed of the mystic Christ child that God plants in man's divine soul at conception time, as told in Luke chapter 1, verses 26 through 35. Arcanum 3 describes the gestating process, and Arcanum 4, the birth of that seed in the prodigal's inner and eventually his outer life. Arcanum 2 also explains the allegory of Adam and Eve. Before entering into the covenant he made with the Lord of earth life, Adam was androgynous. In the eternal realm, he united with himself both sexes. Birth into the world of time split the unity of his spiritual being into duality. Adam and Eve, spirit and soul, male and female, positive and negative. When the great work of redemption completes its task, it reunites the mystic pillars of Jachin and Boaz. Him that overcometh will I make a pillar, one pillar, not two, in the temple of my God, and he shall go no more out. Revelation chapter 3, verse 12. When the prodigals finally return to their father's house, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are as the angels of God in heaven. Matthew chapter 22, verse 30. The symbolism of Arcanum 2 straightens out the twisted skein of the soulmate doctrine. It speaks of the spiritual reunion of the spirit and soul within each man and each woman individually. Genesis chapter 2, verse 21 tells us that the soul was separated from the spirit. Eventually, she will be restored to her rightful place as the bride of man's eternal spirit. The veil of the reasoning mind the virgin wears corresponds to the story of the veil that Moses wore over his face when he spoke to the children of Israel, but which he removed when he communed with the Lord in the mystic temple of truth. It is the veil of the temple that must be rent from the top to the bottom. Matthew chapter 27, verse 51. The light of God comes from above to illuminate men's sin-darkened minds. The virgin's mantle of flesh and the carnal mind, which animates it, the Apostle Paul called the natural man. It is the part of man's nature which receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him. Neither can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned. 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 14. The Virgin's book corresponds to the one in Revelation chapter 5, verse 1, written within and on the backside. Isaiah, one of Israel's greatest prophets and seers, gives a clear description of this book by linking it up with the symbolism of Arcanum 022. They are drunken, but not with wine. They stagger, but not with strong drink. For the Lord hath poured out upon you the spirit of deep sleep, and hath closed your eyes. And the vision of all is become unto you as the words of a book that is sealed, which men deliver to one that is learned, saying, Read this, I pray thee. And he saith, I cannot, for it is sealed. And the book is delivered to him that is not learned, saying, Read this, I pray thee. And he saith, I am not learned. Isaiah chapter 29, verses 9 through 12. Man's insatiable passion for knowledge congests the mind and paralyzes the intuition. As Albert Pike, the oracle of Masonry, has said, we can learn 1,000,000 secrets of science and record another million after that, and yet have no real understanding of life and its richest meanings. As long as man submits to the mind's natural drive towards self-seeking, which directs his search for truth outside of himself, the greater portion of truth eludes him, as toxemia and constipation follow if he stuffs the body with too much or the wrong kind of food. So, if he stuffs his mind with nothing but facts that advance his self-interest, he may acquire much knowledge but little wisdom. He becomes drunken and staggers, because mental cramming brings upon him the spirit of deep sleep and closes his inner eye to eternal reality. The book of life remains sealed until the still small voice of intuition opens it for him. The most notable biblical reference to the symbolism and philosophy of Arcanum 2 is the Magnificat of the Virgin Mary found in Luke chapter 1, verses 46 through 54. And Mary said, My soul doth magnify the Lord, and my spirit hath rejoiced in God my Saviour, for he hath regarded the low estate of his handmaiden. For, behold, from henceforth all generations shall call me blessed. For he that is mighty hath done to me great things, and holy is his name, and his mercy is on them that fear him from generation to generation. He hath showed strength with his arm. He hath scattered the proud in the imagination of their hearts. He hath put down the mighty from their seats, and exalted them of low degree. He hath filled the hungry with good things, and the rich he hath sent empty away. He hath holpen his servant Israel in remembrance of his mercy, as he spake to our fathers, to Abraham, and to his seed forever. Whether or not the virgin birth of Jesus was historical has been notably debated for centuries, but this misses the real point of the story. As a type of man's divine soul, the Virgin Mary has great significance. For that soul which she typifies serves as the Mother of God in all of us. And when the Christ child she gives birth to grows up, he does indeed strengthen with his strong arm. He puts down those who are mighty and proud, and exalts those who are low and humble. He fills with spiritual food those who are hungry, and his mercy extends to the children of faith forever. Aphorism. Remember then, son of earth, that the inner light of the Spirit is revealed only to those who seek it, to those who have turned their will from materialism to spirituality. Unto him who asks it shall be given, and unto whomsoever knocks, the door of the temple of truth shall be opened. Keywords and correspondences. Arcanum 2. Reference page 38 in The Royal Road.